Praise the Lord, saints. As I'm sitting here, it's actually New Year's Eve on 2023, and it just seemed like a good time to give a testimony why I believe in Jesus. And so I would say that as a young person coming up, living with my parents, they went to church on and off during those days, and so I accepted the thought that Jesus was alive and that God existed because I was taught that way, and it seemed like it really had touched my heart from the time I was a child to believe in Jesus and to think of him as being real and that he really loved people, and he wanted a relationship with them. I thought that those things were true. But as I got older and I began to get into drugs and drinking and running with females, the things that many other people were doing in those days, I found my faith waning. Now I never had been a Christian, make no mistake about that. I had good thoughts about Jesus, but I had never been really a disciple of his at all. I was still just living in sin and had actually been involved in deep sin from the time I was very young. But like I say, when I would hear about Jesus, I would feel good about that. But as the time went on, then my faith was more and more waning about the things I had been taught. And I was reading books about New Age experiences, and I was reading people about occultic things that they were getting into, and just things that were drawing me to not believe in Jesus, that were feeding the unbelief that I had still in my heart. When just because you have good feelings toward Jesus doesn't mean that you really have a connection with him or anything. But I do believe, looking back, that God was dealing with me. But how that happened was, one day I was at work and I was really serious about my life at that time and wondering, well, what is the truth? Is there anything to this stuff about God? Is any of it true? And so in my own mind, I says, there is no God. There's no such thing as God at all. I was thinking, yeah, it's just like that some people say it's just a crutch that people lean on, and there's nothing to this God thing at all. And so I was 20 years old when I said that to myself at work that day, and it was actually the first time in my life that I had ever openly to myself anyway, denied the existence of God. Maybe because maybe I was afraid to ever do that when I was young because, I was taught that God was real. And so, but at that point in my life, I just said, well, there's nothing to it. So at work, one of my jobs was to go out and take care of some things outside. And I was driving a forklift that day, and I drove outside. It was in February of 1974 that this occurred. And I had just got done, for the first time in my life, denying that God even existed. And so I got on my forklift and went outside to do my job, and it seemed like there was something funny about the wind. And I was thinking that something was strange, and I happened to look up, and I saw in the sky like a piece of paper flying through the sky, like a funny wind had been blowing it around or something. And I thought, man, that's really strange. And so I stopped and I just kind of watched this piece of paper as it was coming down from the sky. And so it came down, like I said, it was as if like the wind was blowing this piece of paper, blowing it kind of right toward where I was. And so this piece of paper fell very close to where I had been driving. Like just a few feet. So I got off of my forklift And I thought, I got to see what this is about, because it was very strange. And I walked over and I picked up that paper, and it was a gospel tract. It was a tract about God and Jesus Christ. And you know what? I was so staggered because it had only been 5 minutes before that. For the first time in my life, I had just denied God altogether. And now I drive my forklift outside, and I feel this strange wind, and I look up in the sky, and I see this paper coming down, and it falls right in front of me, and I pick it up, and it's a tract about Jesus. Now, there's no way that you can imagine how profoundly that touched my life. I was scared. I guess you could say, I feared God. Now, I had feared God before in a superstitious kind of way, but now this was very real to me. I tell you, I was so scared that after I looked at this, looking back now, it was a gospel tract. I still remember the name of the tract. I don't remember much about what it said or anything, but I remember it was about Jesus Christ, and I was so scared that I threw it away. I picked it up and just threw it in the trash because it scared me so much. I didn't know what to do. And so then I continued to think about it. I was thinking about it quite a bit because, here it was. I had been really serious about getting some kind of order in my life just before then, like I said. And I was serious to the point where I just denied God totally. And it was the first time in my life that I had ever done that. And so now here I was, after, 5 minutes after denying God outright, here I am picking up this tract that fell right before me about Jesus. And, you better believe I was scared. And like I said, like a fool, I threw that tract away. But I got really meditating on Jesus. And very shortly after that, then I actually had other experiences, and I could no longer hold any unbelief toward Jesus Christ, because that experience was so real to me. I don't know how that God would have maybe reached me some other way, but that's the way that He reached me. Just denied God for the first time in my life, and 5 minutes later, this tract drops down out of the sky right in front of me. So friends, that's how I started believing in Jesus Christ.